G'day guys, MF West here, and today I bring you my Unholy Death Knight Mythic Plus Dungeon Guide. Now, not many people do these kind of guides because they just think that dungeons, dungeons are dungeons and there's no real need to actually make a guide for them, but I've got a lot of requests, so I thought, why not? Let's make a guide for Mythic Dungeons. Now, it's going to be a bit of a basic guide for a lot of people that may be looking at to play Unholy, and Mythic Pluses are quite a large part of the game now. Besides raiding, so you've got raiding and you've got Mythic Pluses as ways to get geared, and Mythic Pluses is a seriously good way to get geared. You don't need to be in a guild, you just need to have a good solid group of 4 other members in the group, and you need to be pretty cohesive and understand each other, and just be a pretty decent group that can go and farm these dungeons, and you can get gear. Holy shit, you can get gear, guys. After the recent buffs to the rewards that chests drop, basically how it works now, I explained it in my last video last week, but doing a level 10 Mythic Plus gives you 880, okay? And every level above that increases by 5 item levels, so 11, 885, 12, 890, 13, 895. So the gear is really good, guys. I really recommend you do Mythic Pluses, especially at the end of the week. Um, I did last week, for example, the affixes were really nice and easy. To 15, I got this piece of gear, 900 item level legs. A lot of people got that from last week because the affixes were nice. For those wondering what affixes are kind of like more like mods that Blizzard put on the Mythic Plus dungeons to make them difficult. Now, there's a variety of affixes, but I'm going to go into that in the guide, and what you need to look out for as an Unholy Death Knight, as a DPS. But yeah, so what do you expect to be in this guide? I'm going to talk about the talents for dungeons, the best talent setup. I'm going to talk about the rotation, so rotation for cleaving adds and just doing AoE damage, and I'm going to use clips from dungeons for that so you guys can see live examples. And then I'm just going to talk about utility that you bring as Death Knight to a Mythic dungeon, because dungeons aren't just like, oh, freaking Frost Breath and just kill everything, run through the dungeon. No. When you get to higher level dungeons, like plus 10 even, everything above plus 10, it starts to get quite difficult. And it comes down to some really clutch pulls for you to get those 2 and 3 chests. So, yeah, that's quite important. And the utility that your pet brings as well, your abomination. So I want to talk about that, and I'm also just going to talk about the affixes real quick so you guys understand what all the affixes are. Alright guys, but first I want to get into the talents. Okay guys, so let's get into the talent setup for Mythic Dungeons. Alright guys, the talents. Now, talents are pretty much the same that you kind of run for raids. I'm just going to go through the different options. Right now, depending on the level and the dungeon does kind of change up the talents, but not by much. So let's go through the first level. Bursting Swords. Bursting Swords is the reason why people would take Unholy Death Knights to Mythic Dungeons, guys. It provides a shit ton of AoE damage. And I'm going to be going over the rotation for using Bursting Swords and doing a fuck ton of damage, guys. Like, I don't think there's a class, maybe Havoc Demon Hunters, that can beat us in like a 5 mob pool. Reason being, you pop down D&D, Death and Decay, you then use your Dark Transformation on your Ghoul, which then allows him to actually use Sweeping Claws and Effective Claws. So as you can read, your Abomination's Cleaver attack has a 35% chance to cause a Festering Wound on the target. So there's a 35% chance that he will cleave everyone and put a wound on. And with Bursting Swords, when you pop that wound, a lot of damage. A lot of fucking damage. Alright, so that is all serve. It's a very single target kind of ability. I would not recommend taking it for dungeons. Bursting Swords is far too good for power and for mobs. Now, what you guys have to remember, majority of dungeons, like 80% of the dungeons, are like 60% trash, 40% mobs. But that will only change if it's tyrannical. Tyrannical is like an affix on the dungeon that Blizzard can put that will increase the HP of the bosses. Then maybe, but even then, I would still take Bursting Swords. It's very good for single target, and right now in Nighthold, for example, everyone's still running Bursting Swords for single target, guys. Alright, Ebon Fever, nah, you're just losing out too much DPS. It's actually not going to even do anywhere near as much DPS as Bursting Swords for AoE packs. Unless you're pulling like a freaking whole dungeon together, then maybe Ebon Fever would be quite strong, but Bursting Swords is too strong, guys. Alright, second level. Pestilent Pistols, there's no other option there. That is good for AoE pulls and for cleaving down 3 adds and killing single target bosses. If you guys don't know, there's an Unholy Death Knight written guide in the Discord channel. It states everything very well, and it talks about the new build. That is the Mastery Haste Clawing Shadows build. I recommend running this build for Mythic Dungeons. It's very, very good, and basically all Clawing Shadows is going to do is replace Castigator. So I really recommend taking that up. And for this tier, Sludge Belcher, he brings a lot of utility, so much utility to the dungeon. You have two grips, basically. So in Neltharion's Lair, those bolters, those stone bolter dudes who throw those rocks, and they disengage back and then throw the rocks. This is the perfect time for you to use your hook. And that hook, I want to talk about later in the utility guide. You need to be making sure that you use that to help your tank out a lot. Asphyxiate, yeah, it's okay, but Sludge Belcher is going to give you a minor DPS increase, and that utility, it's too good. And Debilitating Infestation, I don't see a reason why you'd be kiting that much. Yeah, no reason, guys. Alright, next, you have to make a choice. In this, is it going to be, I recommend taking Lingering Apparitation. Why? Our mobility is really shit. I'm going to be straight with you guys, it's really bad. And when everyone's flying through the dungeon, pulling mob to mob, we're just like trying to run because we haven't got fucking Death's Advance anymore. So yep, you need to take this to keep up with tanks and just keep up with the mobs, especially on lower level dungeons. When you're just breezing through trying to get those 3 chests, you need some kind of mobility to keep up with things. Spell Eater is an option, but you only on most dungeons only one boss has like a major magical ability, so there's no reason. We need this for for keeping up with shit. Alright, Shadow Infusion, Necrosis, Infected Claws. Shadow Infusion is actually really awesome. It's going to reduce the remaining cooldown of Dark Transformation by 5 seconds every time we use Death Coil. That is really sick because having Dark Transformation means you can spam. He's going to have Swooping Infected Claws up more, and he's going to be using an ability called Vile Gas. When your ghoul is transformed, he's using an ability called Vile Gas, which is an AoE kind of poison cloud on the ground. Does a lot of damage, does a fuckload of damage. When there's like 4 or 5 mobs, really gonna hurt. So that is a tough one, guys. I really like Infected Claws comboed with Bursting Swords, though. That is a perfect combination. I would really recommend it. So that's what I run up, but it's personal preference, honestly, guys. But Bursting Swords and Infected Claws on AoE mobs really does hurt. And the last row, Soul Reaper, Defile, and Dark Arbiter. A lot of people are taking Defile for different dungeons, and I like Soul Reaper, reason being that 30% haste on a 45-second cooldown, I believe, yep, is too strong. Like, if you're using, you can even use Soul Reaper on cooldown pretty much. Just make sure you have it ready for the boss, so you're gauging it correctly. I would, however, you will take Defile if you have Death March. If you have Death March, it's going to reduce Death Strikes and Death Calls, reduce the remaining cooldown, Death and Decay. If you have that, then take Defile, because Defile is going to be on a really low cooldown, and you're just going to be able to wreck and pop Defile down almost every mob. And having Defile on every mob with the Mastery build, Clawing Shadows, it's pretty disgusting. That is a really nice legendary for Mythic Pluses. If you don't have it, I really recommend Soul Reaper. On More of Souls, however, I would actually take Defile. The first boss and that first area combined with the last area of More of Soul, there's a lot of mobs, and Defile really does increase that kind of like damage output. Personal preference though, but I would only take Defile for More of Souls, especially if your tank's good and he's pulling mobs together. So guys, that is the talent setup for Unholy Death Knights in dungeons. You might have different setups, but this is what I prefer and I'm quite successful with. So yeah, that's talent setup, guys. Alright, let's get into the pet utility and just what pets bring, along with the affixes. I'm going to combine the 2 sections. Right, let's get into it. Alright guys, before we get into our pet utility and how to use your pet effectively in Mythic Plus dungeons, let's have a look at the affixes. It's important as DPS for you to understand Mythic affixes, Mythic Plus affixes. Right, Bolstering, this one is a dick. When any non-boss's enemy dies, its death cry empowers nearby allies, increasing their maximum health and damage by 20%. So basically, the tank will not pull as many mobs together, and you shouldn't try and pull for the tank. And when every mob dies, it's going to empower the other one. So you want to keep all the adds HP kind of even. If you're leading a Mythic Plus, it's good to know these affixes as well, so you can tell the group and understand. Necrotic. pretty much our spell, Unholy Death Knight spell in PvP. Stealing our name, guys. Enemy melee attacks apply a stacking debuff that deals damage and reduces healing absorbs. That's a tank healer thing. Doesn't really affect us, but unless you're actually getting aggro, but yeah. Overflowing causes all overhealing done by healer spec players. Trigger a heal absorb on the target proportional to the amount of overhealing done. Yeah, a healer specific fix. Pretty good for DPS. It means it's like only a healer problem if your healer's overhealing. So, yep, raging non-boss enemies and rage at 30% health remaining, dealing 100% increased damage until defeated. There you want to save your CC, your stuns, your pet stuns, your grips and stuff for when mobs get below 30%. Sanguine, shortly after death, non-boss enemies will leave a pool of blood on the ground. This one is amazing. Alright, this fix is why we are Death Knights. We can death grip mobs out of the pool in the blood, which heals them, which is very, very good, and tanks will love you for it. Personally, I run with a blood DK tank, and it is so helpful when we have 3 grips. Okay, 4, he has 2 death grips. Yep, I love Sanguine. Any wicked Sanguine, I push for the highest key I can do. Skittish, that's this week. Enemies pay far less attention to threat generated by tanks. Yep, you can lose aggro, be very careful. You might have to pop like AMS or Icebound and Kite with Chains of Ice. Teaming, additional non-boss enemies are present throughout the dungeon. Kill count requirement is increased, so you need to kill more mobs in the dungeon to get that 100% tick for the dungeon being completed for the mob count. Volcanic, I like this one. While in combat, enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath the feet of distant players. That's fine, just keep moving around, don't stand still and be like, I'm standing in fire. Don't do that. Now, when you get a keystone above level 10, you're going to get these a third affix. Fortified or Tyrannical. Fortified increases the health and damage of all non-boss enemies, and Tyrannical increases the health and damage of boss enemies. So those are all the affixes, guys. I hope that helps you out understanding like if the affixes you'll see at the start of the week on add-ons, and when you go in the dungeon, what the affixes will be. Now you will know what to do. Okay? Right, let's get back into game and look at our pet utility. Right, so as I said, you pick Sludge Belcher, guys. Now, Sludge Belcher, what does he bring to the raid? Right, guys, he actually brings a stun. If he's not empowered with Dark Transformation, his stun will only stun for 1 second. So you basically want to use all his abilities when he's empowered. Dark Transformation, sorry. And the hook on a 30-second cooldown, okay? Now, our grip is on a 25-second cooldown, so these two are pretty much on the same thing. Yeah, and the good thing about this hook is it actually immobilizes the enemy after you pull them in. They can't immobilize, meaning they can't run anymore. So yeah, that's very, very good. And Protective Bile, that's an ability which makes him just reduce all damage. You would couple this with Corpse Shield in PvP, but I'm not talking about that right now. And Cleaver. This is the ability that's going to do a shitload of damage in Mythic Dungeons, guys. Normally it just deals 125% normal melee damage, but when he's transformed, expels Vile Gas, dealing 80% of normal melee damage as shadow to all enemies. It's that massive cloud on the ground. It's very, very awesome. You'll notice it, and some tanks unfortunately think it's like an ad ability, and they try to run out of it. But yeah, just tell them that it's your pets like Vile Gas, and they'll understand. So let me just show you some example, guys, in Altharian's Lair, for example, when we're clearing it, the actual utility that your pet and your Death Grip bring. I'm just gonna show you like what we can offer in the Mythic Plus dungeon, guys. So let's look at those clips now. Alright guys, we're here in Neltharian's Lair, plus 14, and these bolters are really annoying. As you can see, he's going to get pulled in by the tank, but immediately disengage back. So I see that, and I'm pulling back in, and now we're going to be able to cleave all of them. It's very important for these mobs. This is like the one mob that can wipe you in this dungeon, that you always try and stop him from, pelting those rocks at you. And every time he disengages, we have a means to pull him back. I'm going to use my Death Grip there as well. And I still have Hook available on a 25-second cooldown. So this mob is going to go down very easily. And it's very important that you use your stuns, guys, as well, to stop them from just raping or giving your healer an easier time as well. So he disengages back there. He's going to get pulled from my pit and interrupt his last cast. Alright, let me just show you the next mob. This next mob is arguably one of the harder mobs in the dungeon, except the last few mobs, especially on this difficulty, guys. This mob can be a pain. Yeah, this part here. There's 2 stone pelters, so me and the Death Knight, our tank, have to coordinate our grips very, very well. So He's going to pull the first guy that's engaged back here, boom, and then I'm going to pull the one that's going to disengage back in a second. Here he goes. And now I'm going to use my pet grip for the next one now, and by then it has to be, the mobs have to be dead, otherwise, you know, I almost died here, 3% HP. But yeah, one of them is going to go back now, and I'm going to use my pet's hook on him. It's very important that you keep on your pet's hook as well, guys. And that part just makes your tank's life so much easier, guys. Pulling them together and just cleaving adds. It's very good for if there's an add like a strangle on the outside. You can just pull him in, and your group can cleave him down much faster instead of going and killing him, you know, singular. So there you have it, guys. Let's get into some Eye of Ashara little tips that you can do with your pet as well. Right, guys, so this little tip here on Eye of Ashara before the last boss. DK Tank's going to pull that one over there, and I'm going to go and pull the other one. Now I have two grips and he has two as well. So he's going to pull him closer, actually pull him a little bit closer as well. That means my pet hook to pull this bitch closer, so we can just cleave them both together, as you can see here. So that is a good situation. You can save a lot of time here if you're going for that 3 chest or that 2 chest. That's just an example of how you can pull those two together. I'm going to show you guys another example of that now. Your tank will love you, by the way, if you do this. Just make sure you tell them what you're doing. Right, guys, and here's the second example. Pretty much the same thing, but this is a plus 12. Tank's going to go for that one on the left. I'm going to go for one on the right. I'm going to pull it with my pet to get to there, and then I'll pull with Death Grip afterwards. So you're going to see that. There's the pet hook. And then grip her in closer together. There we go. Now we're going to cleave them again. So yeah, that you can save a lot of time. There's a little small tip that you can do. And yeah, I'm probably going to tell you guys, I think a few more little tips that you can do with grips for other dungeons, but this is a big one, along with Neltharion's Lair. So yeah, I really like getting these dungeons. They're not so bad as well. Right, guys, so that concludes the pet utility and this utility that Death Knight's bringing in general. I'm going to show you guys the rotation. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been worrying about that. It's the AoE rotation in dungeon. Let's get into it. Alright, guys, and here we are in Neltharion's Lair. This is going to be, I'm just going to slow it down. This is going to be the rotation for more than 4 to 5 mobs, so plus 4 mobs. The tank's going to pull them together. You're going to outbreak all of them. Remember, one outbreak will spread to all of them. That's fine. Next thing you're going to do is transform your ghoul for a big pull like this, and then you're going to D&D on top of them. Don't get trigger happy. Make sure your D&D is on the place where they are. Then all you do is spam Clawing Shadows. Why? Because your pet is actually applying wounds via your Sweeping Claws talent on all the targets. And by you spamming Clawing Shadows on top of your D&D, it's going to be breaking all the wounds on all the targets, and you're going to do a shit ton of AoE damage, guys. You're going to be doing around 2 to 3 million, depending on your gear, obviously. But you're going to be doing a shit ton of damage because all the wounds are popping and hitting all the targets around them, with your bursting wounds especially. So that is an example of a very clean kind of pull there with like 9-10 mobs. And you want to kind of save your Dark Transformation for these kind of pulls, guys. That's very important. Not to be using your Dark Transformation on like, you know, 1 or 2 mobs. You want to use that, really squeeze out that damage for those big mobs and make it easy for your tank and heals. And just yourself, actually, if the time constraints. And remember, your pet's on a 45-second cooldown, your Dark Transformation CD. Right, let's show another one of those guys. Right, guys, Maw of Souls. This pull is fun. This first pull is really fun and can determine if you get a 3 chest, maybe even a 2 chest for that matter. As you're going to see here, slowing it down, look at top left what abilities I'm using. I'm going to outbreak all of them, followed by my Dark Transformation. Now this time I have Defile. I like actually running Defile in this dungeon, just before this actual mob. This massive pack here. Pop Defile, make sure you're standing on top of your Defile, guys, and then spamming Clawing Shadows. Defile is going to be buffing my mastery, so my Clawing Shadows on all the targets is going to be hitting like a truck. And then like 5 million DPS, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I love taking Defile for this actual area here. So yep, guys, it's very simple. It's just 3 separate moves. Outbreak, Dark Transformation, make sure all the targets are stacked, Death and Decay using a macro I gave you, and then spamming Clawing of Shadows. That is a simple AoE rotation for plus, this was like 12, 13 mobs, and we got it down. And as you're going to see here, our DK tank is going to kite it back down the hill to avoid all that damage. And then after the D&D, guys, look for some of the mobs that have your wounds on them from your pet, and just pop those when they're surrounded around the other enemies. So, and then you can basically weave and pop all those wounds, and then you can actually weave and pop Festering Wounds. You can Festering Strike each of the different targets, and then spamming Clawing of Shadows, obviously. And then just wait for that D&D cooldown or your Defile cooldown to come off CD, so you can use it again And yeah, and just try and your tank should realize as you're a Death Knight that you should try and stack them together on the D&D, guys. Right, so let's get into around 3 to 4 mobs, guys. Guys, here we are in Eye of Ashara. This is around 3 to 4 mobs. Now, here you have an option. You can either weave in between the mobs and try and apply Festering Strike to each of them, or you can do what I'm doing here and not pop your Dark Transformation. Say that's off cooldown. This is 3 to 4 targets. You can just pop D&D down and make sure that one of your targets has wounds on them and then spam Falling Shadows on that target. You have to judge yourself if the mobs are going to be dying too quick for you to be applying Festering Strikes to a few different mobs, or they're going to be living. That's your choice. But I like to just put D&D down and then spam Falling Shadows and let your Bursting Swords just kind of AoE them down. Now for the first boss here, this is a good example of cleave. I'm going to pop army, do my normal rotations up in the top left hand corner, Festering Strike to around 6 stacks, and then Soul Reaper Apocalypse. Ads have spawned now. Now I'm going to wait till my tank pulls them in, D&D down, and then spam Falling Shadows while they're on top of my D&D. And oh my god, the damage is amazing. As you're going to see, I'm going to burst up to 1 million here. This is the perfect idea for like kind of a cleave boss for Unholy. With Bursting Swords, we really do a shit ton of damage. So yeah, guys. So 3 to 4 mobs, you have to choose. Is it worth my time to Festering Strike each of these mobs, and they're just gonna die too quick for me to actually burst all the wounds? You don't really want to be wasting wounds, guys. That's like the worst kind of situation. You want to be going between mobs quickly. So I recommend just Festering Striking one and then letting the Bursting Swords cleave on top of the other ads. And then just continue like that. And then for the big for the big pulls, use your Dark Transformation. And if you use the same tank, guys, you're gonna get to know his kind of pulls, so you're gonna know where to pop your cooldowns. And because not all tanks pull the same, unfortunately. So yeah, get to know your tank, get to know his pulls, and you'll just be annihilating through damage, guys. Unholy is very, very versatile in Mythic Dungeons. We have good single target damage, and we have good AoE damage. Right, so that pretty much summarizes the rotation part, guys. For the AoE rotation, I'm going to be releasing my guide about single target rotation using Nighthold bosses very soon, guys. It's coming out soon. But I'm just going to conclude the video now, guys, so let's do that. There you have it, guys. That is the guide. That is my Mythic Plus Unholy Death Knight guide. Now, if anything changes dramatically, maybe like new talents in 7.2, I will adjust, but I hope you guys get the gist of it, and I hope you guys understand the importance of doing Mythic Pluses. It's ridiculous how geared you can get. You can get a fresh alt, say you're running with a group of guys, they could run you through like 7 or 8 Mythic Plus dungeons, and you can get gear from each of them. Remember, depending on how well you do in the timers, depends on how many chests you get. And each chest can have a chance of really nice Titan Forge or even Warforged loot, or even a bloody legendary. I've seen legendaries from, so. Right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know down in the comments if I helped you. If you have anything to add, this video can be kind of like a forum to Mythic Dungeons. Any kind of special things that Death Knights can do in Mythic Pluses, down in the comments, guys. Let everyone know. Share your knowledge. That is what I want to do. That's what I'm doing with you guys. And tell me the best piece of gear you've gotten from freaking dungeons. Like, I think this would have to be mine for Mythic Pluses, but yeah. Tell me what you guys like. More videos to come. PvP guide, PvE guide, fucking guides. I'm going to show you my legendary drop and a few other pieces that I got in like one reset. It was insane. So, have an awesome fucking day, guys. MF West out. Peace.